As promised, today we're going to be creating, this is part 2 of the Archon series. By now, hopefully if you've watched Archon 1, you have gone over to Experimental Airlines and watched the video on creating the arm and wing. Referring back to video 1, the only modification I made to the arm and wing was the carbon fiber. Now we're going to go through a step-by-step instructions on how to make the fuselage with the modifications that I made and using the Dow Corning foam insulation foam board, which I've used in my design. So the very first thing I do is I cut the foam in 2-inch strips. I cut 4 of them. I use my old drywall ruler because it's 2 inches wide, so it makes it convenient. I set it right down on the edge, and I cut 4 strips of the drywall, and then I cut them off at 45 inches. I keep it to the same dimensions that Ed had in his proton plane because it keeps the center of gravity fairly good. So if you need to, so what we do is we cut these into strips, and we end up with 4 of these 2-inch strips, and then I cut them down to 45 inches. Now for the next step in the process of making the Archon 1 is, now that we've cut our foam into the 2-inch strips and we have 4 of them, we have to glue these together. The glue I'm going to be using is the Well-Bond glue. There's a video up on my channel that talks about the different types of glue. If you have questions, you can refer to that video. So what I do is I add a fairly good bead of the glue right down along, just kind of snake it down. Okay, place the two together. Put the two together. Now, sometimes before I put this one on, what I've done on some of my planes is I've actually cut a channel out right in here to run wires. For this video, I'm going to run the wires all externally. It just makes it simpler. But if you want to line them up, I put a piece of metal bar on top. Okay, that keeps it nice, even consistency all the way along. And then I take my bar clamps and I put bar clamps on here to hold the pieces together. Okay, that's it for this stage. What we have to do now is to let it dry, and then we'll move on to the next phase. Now that we've glued our model, our foam together to create the basic outline of our fuselage, the one thing I do next, and the one thing that you'll get from Experimental Airlines as well, is I put tape on it. Now I took a sanding block, cheap little dollar store sanding block, and sanded down some of the surfaces. I don't go crazy on it, and I evened off both ends. Okay. The one thing before you tape, make sure that you get all the dust off. I use a little bit of compressed air to make sure all the surfaces are clean. Then I take my tape, and I'm sure you'll know where to buy these, but I'll put the links on the website anyway for you to use. What I use is I use 2-color tape. I primarily, for most of the planes I build, I use yellow on the bottom, and then any color I want on the top. In this case here, I'm going to use blue as my color. So I start with, and there's no right way or wrong way of doing this. I just apply it. So I'm just going to put a little bit of yellow here on the bottom. I just use my fingers. I don't get fancy. I mean, you can try to get this absolutely perfect, but I don't find it. Now, I'm not doing anything fancy with the front or the back. I'm just leaving it a stock square. just to make it easy. But if you wanted to, you could actually cut some of this foam away here, okay, to give it kind of a sloping tail. As you'll see in the series I'm going to do on the Archon 3, you're going to see that I've added a little bit more style to the plane, and make it a little bit more aerodynamic. But to basically get a plane up in the air and running right away, this video is to do it quickly, and that's the goal. So I'll finish my bottom, laying on we've cut, glued, and taped. We're ready to go to the next phase, which is now adding the components. Now that we've taped our fuselage, and we have my favorite color, yellow, on the bottom, you may want to find your own color that works best for you. I'm going to add the tail section, and again I'll add a link to the Added Experimental Airlines site where he'll give you the instructions on building the tail section. I've done it exactly the same as with the arm and wing. The vertical and horizontal stabilizers, I do almost the same. What I've done is I've added a little bit of a difference. I've put in the credit cards like Ed has shown. I'll take this apart here. Instead of one credit card, I've used two, one on each side of the vertical stabilizer, which is then inserted in two slots in the horizontal stabilizer. And what I do is I place the horizontal stabilizer on my fuselage, mark it with a ruler, okay, making sure that I am equal distance on both sides. And with the advantage of using my wife's quilting table, I work on a table that has all the lines, so I can actually line things up and I can get my right angles. So I would place that on there, line it up on both sides, then I take my knife and then I cut into the bottom part of the fuselage on the both sides where the credit card where the credit card is going to slide in, and I give it enough depth, okay, and test it out first to make sure that the vertical stabilizer goes in. It does, looks good. And now I'll insert the vertical into the horizontal, like so, and then place it in there. Now, holding it in place, the one thing that Ed recommends, and by gosh, it's a great idea, I never thought of it before, is using the two-sided foam tape, and that's what I'm going to use. Two-sided foam tape, put a little bit on each side, cut a little bit on each side, like so. It works. I will be putting some hot glue on as well. Guess I could have made that longer. I'll live with it. Put this on the other side. Okay. And then I simply insert the vertical and horizontal stabilizer into the fuselage, like so, pressing down. And I have to tell you, this is not going to go anywhere. That's the fuselage with the horizontal and vertical stabilizers installed. The wing is already pre-done, as you know. I think you need to go to, if you're going to make this plane, go to Added Experimental Airlines and follow his instructions on creating the arm and wing. And like I said, the only difference is I put in a carbon fiber rod. Now, I'm not going to attach the wing at this time because we're going to decide what motor, what ESC, and what equipment we're going to use. Once we decide that, we will then install them, even temporarily, so we can find out where the center of gravity is for this plane. So depending on your motor and your battery placement, ESC isn't going to matter that much, but you're going to put one on anyway. That's going to determine how far up and down this wing is going to be installed. That will be all in part 3 of the Archon series. Hope to see you then. Hope you enjoyed this video today, and we'll talk to you soon. Like us on the YouTube. Thank you. Bye-bye.